Scott Coffin hated FNAF World, but it's safe to say that from both Freddy in Space 2 and 3, that he was fond of Freddy in Space, and left the other minigames to rot. Even if we include all the other Update 2 minigames, Dee Dee's Fishing Hole, and even the clock minigames, they all got the short end of the stick compared to Freddy in Space. The clock minigames may have set up the FNAF 3 minigames, but that was likely retconned. Dee Dee appeared in Ultimate Custom Night with no reference to fishing. In the FNAF 6 teasers, people compared the rainbow behind 8-Bit Freddy to Chica's Magic Rainbow, and the FNAF movie had Chica's Magic Rainbow as a mascot of the place Mike went to get his coffee at. The Chica's Magic Rainbow minigame can't even take the crown for the hardest challenge in the FNAF franchise because Ultimate Custom Night exists. Unfortunately, I've played FNAF World recently, and the rainbow says that it needs blood. So I'm going to come up with games that could potentially spin off from these forgotten minigames, and for the fun of it, throw in Dee Dee's fishing minigame. Let's start with the easiest to play, and by far the most confusing of them, Foxy.exe. What drugs was Scott on when making this? All of the other games make sense as games, but Foxy.exe doesn't follow the typical structure of a game, to the point I kinda don't want to call it a minigame and instead just a mini. What could I possibly do with this? I'm going to treat this spin-off as somewhat canon, like how Ultimate Custom Night is considered somewhat canon. Instead of playing as Bonnie, we play as Jeremy, the kid who was stuffed into Bonnie. Instead of a dark, empty void, you will play in a seemingly abandoned house, meant to be Jeremy's house before he died, as well as some of the hallway minigames we played in FNAF Help Wanted 1, The Curse of Dreadbear. The first section will stay the same. Nothing can kill you, and Foxy's voice guides you to the end of the hallway. Only now it seems like this. Only now, the voice of Foxy sounds more like the voice you hear from when Foxy kills you in Ultimate Custom Night. That's what I meant to say. We're bringing up Ultimate Custom Night a lot more in this video than I would have thought. We will be switching around the cat and Withered Freddy sections, so next up you have the cat section, and you don't have to worry about everything becoming swirly or distorted. I imagine this section being like a first-person 3D version of the original Mr. Hop's Playhouse. If you've played that game before, you probably already know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, I imagine while you are walking through this hallway, there will be door frames which horribly distorted cats would occasionally walk past, and you have to make sure they aren't within the door frame while you are. As for how the cats actually look, think of an undistorted version of the cats we see in the original Foxy.exe, mixed with Catnap from Poppy Playtime. The final section will still include the cats, but with a twist. Instead of a random Withered Freddy appearing every time you walk forward for 3 seconds straight, like in the original Foxy.exe, occasionally a Spring Bonnie costume with a knife will appear at the end of the hallway that you're going towards and run towards you from it. And in order to avoid it, you must walk into the door frames the cats walk through. If you make it to the end of the hallway, you end up back in the back room of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. There's a bunch of spare animatronic heads, and a full-size Bonnie suit without a head. If you walk up to it, you are put into a cutscene where Spring Bonnie picks you up from behind and shoves you into the hole where Bonnie's head should be. You look up through this hole to see Spring Bonnie laughing as he puts the Bonnie head back on the suit, and everything becomes pitch black. When you regain vision, uh, you end up in FNAF 2's Parts and Service, taking the perspective of Withered Bonnie. You see Withered Foxy standing next to you, where you were sitting, and the puppet in the door. What this minigame would represent in the lore is a look inside Jeremy's life and afterlife. I'm interpreting the cats as his mom or other relative being a family with a lot of cats, and Jeremy having a fear of cats. I think the Spring Bonnie is meant to represent in. I think what Spring Bonnie is meant to represent in this situation is pretty obvious, and I made this whole game a dream sequence. Jeremy was having a bad dream, and Foxy was helping him wake up. This feels like a spin-off game, and rather the finale of the hallway minigames from The Curse of Dreadbear I was talking about earlier. Next up is Dee Dee's Fishing Pond. In order to maximize the potential of this game, I think it'll have to stay in FNAF World. I imagine it being one of those games that has fishing rods you can upgrade, and whatever character is in your number one spot of your first party is who you play as while fishing, and I imagine every character has a special ability that can be used while fishing. The Pearl, while you can still catch it 5 times to get a permanent healing bite, will not give out the most coins. Let me explain. There will be 2 stations you can find Dee Dee at now, near the beginning of the game, and at the place where the glitchy dead tree is, once you unlock Lily Gear Lake. In this second location, if you play this minigame and miss everything, you can manage to go deeper, get fish that get you even more coins, or even pull up bosses you can't encounter otherwise out of the depths of the waters. This is why I wanted this minigame to stay in FNAF World. If you beat every boss this minigame has to offer, you can pull out one final boss from the bottom of Lily Gear Lake. A boss that, while harder than Scott Cawthon or Chipper's Revenge, isn't as hard as Chica's Magic Rainbow, as in it would definitely survive a slasher or 2. If you defeat this boss, I was originally going to say that you get more coins than any other boss, but then if that's the case, what's the point of Gold Endo? Instead, you will get a trophy and a permanent bite like the fan and the pearl. I don't know what this bite would do, but I think a treasure chest full of gold Faz tokens would be nice, and I don't know if it would be on the ground like a fan or floating like the other bites. Are you wondering how a treasure chest flies? Bubbles. Next, we have Foxy Fighters, which is pretty simple. I give it multiple levels with unique enemies. I know it seems pretty boring, but I couldn't really think of anything interesting to do with Foxy Fighters. The most exciting thing I can think of is that because Souldozer is the final boss in the original minigame, I could have made it as like all of Scott Cawthon's prior games collapse into the Foxy Fighters world, and now they're all going rampant and Foxy has to stop them, but I don't have the attention span to learn the lore of all of Scott's old games. So, yeah, Foxy Fires, unless you're into that kind of thing, it's pretty boring. Chica's Magic Rainbow, though, I had a lot of fun with. There are two ways this could go. One way would simply to give Chica's Magic Rainbow multiple levels, each one using a different gimmick to kill you. All the levels would be based on places you can visit in FNAF World. Some would be basic places like Fazbear Hills and Shoppy's Woods. Others might be more obscure places like Deep Metal Mine and Pinwheel Funhouse. Perhaps we can even get places like the Geist Lair and sign star underscore 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 TWRE. Geist Lair would be the final level, where you have the final boss against Chica's Magic Rainbow herself. Though, unlike the boss fight with Chica's Magic Rainbow that we get in FNAF World. This boss battle might even be so difficult that it would rival 50-20 mode in difficulty. Perhaps there would even be a secret level that takes place in the pizzeria and give us actual FNAF World lore. But that's the easy option. Let's get to the fun option, turning Chica's Magic Rainbow into a horror game. You play as Susie, the kid who gets stuffed into Chica. She doesn't know why, but she is randomly transported into a haven with giant sunflowers and butterflies. She ends up being greeted by the rainbow. Just not the rainbow as we know her. It appears humanoid, with red, yellow, and blue striped hair with pigtails. This would also be a good way to bring Sun and Moon from Security Breach into the story, with them also being humanoid sky objects, and possibly some other characters. They would all reside in a village where you can interact with them all. Perhaps there would be some sort of currency used to buy upgrades. Upgrades on what? Well, you'll eventually tell the rainbow that you want to go home. The rainbow summons a cloud for her to travel on and takes you to the exit. Eventually, you see a employees-only door in the distance, seemingly unattached from any building. She begins heading toward the door, but when she keeps walking, one of the flowers she passes by grows a mouth in the middle of their petals and eats Susie whole. A few seconds later, Susie stands where she was just a few moments ago, being told by the rainbow that no one gets this on their first try. Susie asks what just happened, and the rainbow tells her that she died, but she was brought back to life. She says that the world doesn't want her to leave, but that was probably a good thing, as the world she wants to return to sucks. They return to the village, but Susie isn't fond of this world either. She finds that this world isn't as cheery as the characters let on. Sun becomes obsessed with playing with Susie, not in a creepy way, get your head out of the gutter. Moon stops at nothing to put her to sleep at night, and Rainbow keeps insulting her whenever she dies. She even begins remembering some stuff, like the fact this world was an arcade game she played at a place called Chica's Party World. And she even sees herself wearing a Chica mask in a mirror, despite her not wearing one in the real world. Susie eventually gets tired of it, and tells the rainbow that she wants to leave, not for the sake of going home, but for the sake of not being here. The rainbow is insulted by this. She disappears from thin air, as well as the rest of the characters in the village, and the sky turns completely cloudy. Susie returns to where she saw the exit door. The flowers no longer hiding their grinning mouths, and the butterflies have grown gigantic. shooting lasers from their mouths onto the barren floor that was left by which was once plain grass, but after a lot of lasers is now just dirt and stone. Holes have begun to open up in the earth, pits filled with sharp logs ready to impale anything that falls in. Susie notices the rainbow behind her, beginning to chase after her, their eyes a deep black and an uncanny grin. She now crawls on hundreds of elongated arms and legs, despite the fact her body has not grown in length like you would expect from a centipede. Susie runs to the exit, and depending on the player of the game, dies multiple times trying to get there, but is always revived by the rainbow for their own amusement. There are two endings. One, the rainbow gets tired of this and kills Susie off once and for all, with the last thing she hears being the rainbow saying, "You still suck." 2. As Susie gets closer and closer to the exit, more and more of her body gets covered in a Chica suit. When she finally opens the door and leaves, you get a small cutscene of the Chica head being put onto Susie's head. Susie wakes up in an arcade of Chica's Party World after it closed. She was leaning against a Chica's Magic Rainbow arcade game and went to lean off of it to find that not only was apparently I don't know what I was thinking in the script. When she leans off of it, she finds that her hands are covered in blood. In fact, there was blood all over her beak. Then she remembers what happened. She was playing a game in the furthest reaches of the arcade games about a fruit maze when a yellow bunny from that rival company, Fredbear's Family Diner, took her, killed her, and stuffed her in a Chica suit. Later, she thought she saw the person wearing a bunny suit playing the Chica's Magic Rainbow game, so using Chica's free roam mode, she went up to him and killed him, but it was the wrong guy. She remembers hearing the screams of the children all around her, but then she shut off and ended up in the arcade game. She began searching around the building when she found a newspaper in the security office. Apparently, her little stunt got Chica's Party World to go bankrupt, only for the character copyright to be saved by Fredbear's. Susie flips over the newspaper to find a message made in her blood by William Afton. Reading, 1 child down, 5 to go. Just then, it turns 6 a.m., and we watch a credit scene of Chica being put on a stage next to a brown bear and a blue/purple bunny. But that does not mean that the rainbow is just simply out of the story. No. William, he took that arcade game, and along with it, the AI of the rainbow. From there, the rainbow had watched everything. The murder of the 5 other kids. The eventual spring lock of William Afton. The burning down of both Fazbear Frights and Pizzeria Simulator. And eventually, some glam rock animatronics uh, going through the rubble of Pizzeria Simulator. All the while, she waits for someone else, someone new to play with. She has become aware that there is a world beyond this happy, fun rainbow land. Some say that if you glitch out of the boundaries of ruin and put on the mask, the Vanny mask, that is, and look in a specific place, you will see that arcade game, and along with it, a partially digitized version of that humanoid rainbow. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Bye-bye!